So I'd like to welcome everyone to the 20th CRC Roundtable. This month is full of milestones, and the 20th Roundtable is certainly one of them. It's our monthly virtual seminar series, and our intention with these webinars is to host targeted, inclusive, and informed conversations that match scientific advances and management needs. The webinars are designed for contribution, not consumption. So each seminar invites a diverse range of researchers, managers, and other professionals to have conversations around critical topics. The point of these discussions is to build connectivity between all of us and to increase our collective understanding of the important issues and the work we're all doing as part of this Bay community. My name is Melissa Fagan, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's session. We would love to know who is with us today, so please drop your name, your organization, and where you're from in the chat box. This month's roundtable is a little bit different than our previous webinars. We're not tackling scientific discovery or a management issue today. Instead, we're embracing the context of celebration. We have CRC's 50th anniversary this year. It's Earth Day this week, so there's a lot of celebrations going on around the community. And we are excited to take a moment to celebrate our environmental leaders and highlight one of the CRC programs that's been dedicating to developing this talented group of Bay professionals. So we're going to start with a very brief overview of the Environmental Management Career Development Program. And that's to give everyone some baseline information before turning the floor over to three of our program's alumni who are here with us today. And they're going to share a little bit about their experience in the program and how that time has helped to shape their careers. Following their comments, we're going to open up the floor for questions and discussion. So if you have questions during our panelists' remarks, please feel free to drop them in the chat box, and we will go over them during the discussion period following the panelists' comments. If there's any questions that we're not able to answer during our time together, we will follow up with an email with some additional information for you. So let me start us off with some information about the Career Development Program. The program is designed to give early career environmental scientists, managers, educators, and communicators an entry point into the Bay's professional community. It not only provides critical working experience, but it also allows each person in the program to focus on their individual growth and development. Staffers, they are called now, they used to be called interns as well as fellows, but we call them staffers now, all support the work of the Chesapeake Bay program, which is a partnership of government agencies, academic institutions, and other organizations who are all working together to advance the management of the Chesapeake Bay, its watershed, and its resources. The Bay program was established in the 1980s, and so was CRC's program. So we have been a part of their story since the beginning and have shepherded through many individuals that are still contributing as part of the Bay's professional community today. The staffers in the program are with us for 3 years, and in that time, they develop expert coordination and communication skills. They engage in technical work and management projects, and they have the opportunity to focus on their own growth and development so that when the time comes for them to leave our program, they do so prepared for whatever lies ahead of them. Many continue on with their educational pursuits, and many also continue working in the workforce, and we're excited to share that a lot of them stay within the Bay community. Staffers move on to a variety of different types of positions from this program, and you'll see that variety reflected on today's panel. So without further ado, I am going to turn this over to the first of our 3 alums, and introduce Kevin Chabot, who is the Deputy Director of NOAA's Chesapeake Bay office. So Kevin, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. Let me just pull up my presentation, and can you all see that?
Yep, you're good to go.
So excellent, thank you. Yeah, so again, my name is Kevin Chabot, and first off, just thanks so much for including me in this roundtable. I'm really honored to be part of it. I'm currently the Deputy Director at NOAA's Chesapeake Bay office, which Melissa just mentioned, which is here in Annapolis. That's me there on a recent kayaking fishing trip with my boys. I was part of the program when we were called fellows for 15 short but impactful months, April 06 through July 07. And I was part of the Communication and Education Subcommittee at that time. As the name implies, there was a communication work group and an education work group, which I staffed. So what I want to talk about is sort of how and why I got to CRC, why I selected it. Yes, what I did while I was a fellow, but more importantly, what it did for me. And then, my current job, how I landed in it, and what I do, and how CRC, this program, prepared me for it. So first of all, just how and why I got to CRC. I'm from Wisconsin originally. I did my undergrad in Wisconsin, the state school there. I majored in biology and natural resource management with an environmental education focus. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do after graduating, and so I moved to Southern California, which was very appealing for a guy in his early 20s, and got a job as an outdoor education instructor. So I was teaching ecology and botany and rock climbing and survival skills, and it was very fun and engaging. And my career started advancing that way. I eventually, that morphed into directing the program that I was teaching for. And then after a couple of years, I was directing other programs at this particular facility. So I was going places, but it wasn't in the direction that I wanted. I was interested in environmental science and environmental management, and this wasn't taking me that way. So I knew I needed a change. So I knew I needed two things. I wanted to look for an advanced degree, and then a job opportunities, a job that would give me some real world experience. I started looking at graduate school programs. I found the Johns Hopkins advanced academic programs, environmental science and policy, which would bring me out to the mid-Atlantic. And so then I started looking for job opportunities out in the mid-Atlantic, and was instantly drawn to this program. I was drawn to the fact that it seems so diverse, and staffing the Bay program, the breadth of things that the Bay program does, from the different topics to the different agencies, really, really excited me. The fact that it was a lot of fostered professional growth and would allow me to sort of see a lot of different aspects of the environmental field, that really just drew me to CRC. So I was fortunate enough to get into Hopkins, and then moved out to this area, and was again fortunate enough to get this position. So that's how I landed at Chesapeake Research Consortium and this program. So as I mentioned, I was part of the Communications and Education Subcommittee. My undergrad degree and my previous experience kind of helped me land in that position. The range of experiences and responsibilities was phenomenal. So I had the education work group that I worked for, and a big part of what I did during my time there, again, it was 15 months. I'd say for 6 months of it was planning and executing a really large biennial education summit. That was my baby for a big chunk of the time that I was with the program. Planning it, at all of the logistics, but not just the things like meals and where it's going to happen, but also what are the agenda topics, who are the speakers going to be, who are the dignitaries that we're going to invite. I got to manage all of that, as well as facilitate some of the sessions that were there. So that was a big chunk of what I did while I was in the program. On the communication side, I was doing the daily Bay News, but I was also able to edit press releases and write talking points for the Bay program director. So it was a really wide range of experience, in addition to be able to go to executive council meetings and other high-level meetings and see policy being hashed out. It was an experience I don't think I could have gotten anywhere else. Professional and personal connections were huge as well. For just as one example, I was able to meet some gentlemen who were working in the environmental finance and conservation easement. They were working in that space, and I was able to hook up with them. And that was where I got the idea for my master's thesis, which focused on conservation banking, which was huge. The personal connections that I think other staffers would relate to was really huge for me. I mean, my wife and I moved from Southern California to this area. We didn't know a whole lot of people, and to instantly have a peer group, a group of people who were in their same part of their life and had a lot of the same values and the same interests was really important. And I made some really lasting friendships. Some of my closest friends to this day were part of the program. Knowledge and insight, that's a given. I was pretty ignorant to how environmental policy was made, and this gave me some firsthand insight into that. I didn't understand what a lot of federal agencies did, a lot of state agencies. I did not know what NOAA was before I took this position. So as an example, I had a lot to learn, and the fellowship taught me a lot. The space to complete my master's was huge. I mean, I did not have to worry that if I had to go to a night class, that if I had a hard stop at 4, that the people I was working for and with in the program were going to give me a hard time about it. That was really important, and it allowed me to do my master's degree. It was a part-time program, but finish that at the same time as doing the program, which was really important. And it pretty much led to my current job. I was working very closely with people at the NOAA Chesapeake Bay office. They got to work with me, know me, and when a contract position came up, they said, apply for this. We think you'd be great at it. And I applied for it and got it. So that has led me to where I am right now, which is my job with NOAA. I'm the deputy director at Chesapeake Bay office. We're a small office, about 25 people working entirely on, obviously as the name implies, Chesapeake Bay. Monitoring, research, environmental education, place-based initiatives. We've got a big suite of things that we do here. I manage the sort of operations, budget, and admin side of our house, which may not sound all that exciting, but what it allows me to do is have my fingers on the pulse of everything that we do, which I love. And because I have my fingers on the pulse of things, sometimes I get to do cool things. For example, last month I was asked to speak with the press, and I was interviewed about a really cool telemetry project that we're doing, where we put out receivers and helping track fish around the Chesapeake Bay. And obviously I didn't get this job directly from CRC, the CRC fellowship. I first got a contract position, and then that morphed into something else, and that morphed into something else. I've done many different roles and had many different positions here at Chesapeake Bay office. And I feel like, I know that the CRC program helped groom me for that and helped make this possible. I think, I learned a lot at CRC, but one of the things I learned was, working with different, pretty different groups of people, that I had to be flexible. I had to jump at opportunities when they arose, but also learn how to say no and learn how to manage your time. So I really learned some important skills at CRC that I applied absolutely directly to my experience here with NOAA. And I credit CRC and the program to leading me to where I am today. So with that, I'll turn it over to other speakers. But just want to say, yeah, it's been a great ride, and I credit CRC for a lot of it. So I will go ahead and stop sharing.
Thanks so much, Kevin, for sharing. And it's been great to have you so close by, and we've got to see as you've continued moving through your career. Next is Julie Hester, who's the Program Director of Civic Engagement at the Keith Campbell Foundation for the Environment.
Thanks, Melissa. And it is a real honor to be here and to know that like we're part of this alumni group. It's really exciting. So I was what was then referred to as a fellow, and I was a fellow from 98 to 2002. My term did cover 4 years, and there was a little bit of transition going on at CRC, at the Bay program, in my personal life at the time, and there was just a lot of flexibility in letting me stay for those 4 years, which looking back was so huge as far as advancing my career, but also just knowing that you had such a support system. So the fellowship was my first job out of college, and I graduated from the Environmental Science and Forestry College in upstate New York in Syracuse. And I knew I wanted to work in environmental policy, but I really knew I wanted to move out of upstate New York. And anyone that's been following the weather and saw that they got a foot of snow yesterday understands why I wanted out. So I supported what was at the time the nutrient subcommittee. And with the new structure, I honestly have no idea what that falls under. There were 2 fellows assigned to that subcommittee, and I mainly supported the urban and agricultural work groups. Looking back at accomplishments, I mean, I learned so much. I actually remember one of the first meetings I went into the fish shack and I looked at a map and I realized that I actually grew up in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And I grew up and was in 4-H and in environmental policy and was that disconnected. I did not realize that. But I did have the opportunity during my tenure to work on nutrient trading principles and then a stormwater directive. And I was really proud that both of those, I had to help walk both of those through the whole Bay program bureaucracy. And in the end, both of those were endorsed by the executive council. So that was a real, just, kind of pat yourself on the back that, in your 20s, you can do something like that. My journey was kind of a zigzag. While I was looking for a job out of the fellowship, I was approached just because it's all about, people that you meet and they learn your skills and your interests. And my interest at the time at the end of the fellowship was stormwater. And so I was approached at the time by DC. It was then under the Department of Health. I think now it's Energy and Environment or Environment and Energy, but their Watershed Protection Division to serve as the liaison to the Bay program and to do field work, basically with stormwater. And I knew very quickly within the first few months that field work was not my strength or my interest. And I was really disappointed that my first real job out of the fellowship was kind of a fail for me. But it also reinforced the support system that I was being professionally kind of raised in. And they gave me such respect and just knowing that this was a learning process. And from there, I started job searching and went to work for the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, kind of coming back to the Bay program, serving as the coordinator of the Citizens Advisory Committee and also the Local Government Advisory Committee. So I covered both of those. And during my time coordinating the Citizens Advisory Committee, I was approached by the first staff person that was hired at the Keith Campbell Foundation. And she said, we're growing, we're ready to hire our first staff person besides herself. And so I did an interview and loved it. I honestly didn't even really know anything about philanthropy or that could be a job. But I'm happy to say I've been here now for 17 years, and I started as just like a program associate, went to a program officer, and now I'm a program director of our civic engagement portfolio. My grants, I probably manage about 75 grants a year, close to like $4 million. But I would say for me now, looking back, I mean, I still have, as Kevin said, I have so many wonderful friends from the fellowship and so many colleagues too, that I remember seeing in meetings in the Fish Shack and up in the third floor conference room when they were all here in the city marina. And I still see those same people at some events. So I wanted to, because I know part of this is celebrating and trying to see, share like what different paths the fellowship can take. So I actually looked at some of my very good friends' LinkedIn page just to say, like, where are people? Like, what is their title right now? And so I just wanted to share a couple. EPA, one of my colleagues is with the Federal Aviation Administration doing environmental specialty work, with FEMA, the Nature Conservancy, Soil and Conservation Districts. One's a professor of biology up in Pennsylvania. So it's really nice to know that this internship, staffing, fellowship, whatever you want to call it, can really morph into whatever your interest and strengths are. And I think my greatest achievement now, at least with the Campbell Foundation, is seeing the growth in the nonprofit space. We helped form the Choose Clean Water Coalition, and then up in Lancaster, the Lancaster Clean Water Partners. And for me, that is just one of my favorite just joys. And it allows me the opportunity to do field visits with some of these nonprofits that we support. One day I might be on the Eastern Shore doing a visit with youth, and the next week I might be down on the James River and seeing sturgeon jump. Most of my time is here in the office, ironically in the same building that the Bay program used to be in, so I didn't go completely full circle. But yeah, it's so I would say too, as far if I had to offer any advice, is just to keep being a student. I didn't go to grad school while I was a fellow, but I did go afterwards, and ironically to Hopkins as well, but for government and policy. And I still read the Bay Journal religiously, monthly, and the Bay Clips daily. And I think, just the science is changing, the people change, thankfully, all the time. More people are coming into this community. And so just to keep being a student. And I'm really happy to say that the Campbell Foundation hosts its own fellowship program now. We've only had one, and we are getting ready to hire our second. And it's just really exciting to me to kind of pay it forward, because it meant so much to my career. And I love the idea that we're able to foster that in others right now. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Julie. And thanks for doing some of that digging on the LinkedIn. It's really great to hear some new titles and affiliations that I hadn't identified yet. Yeah. So thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Last but certainly not least, we are going to turn it over to Kara Skipper, who's an implementation project officer at the Maryland Department of Natural Resources.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
You're good, Kara.
Okay. You're good, Kara. Okay, wonderful. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Kara Skipper, and I'm happy to be here to share my experience as a former CRC staffer. I went way back, but just as a little intro, I grew up in Maryland. I've lived in 5 different Maryland counties. When I was little, my family would wake up ridiculously early to catch fish and crabs at my grandparents' house off a tributary in the Potomac. And that kind of inspired in me a love of the Chesapeake Bay, and led me to do wonderfully nerdy things like Saturday Science Club and Envirothon when I was growing up. And much to the surprise of my parents, halfway through my undergrad at St. Mary's College of Maryland, I switched from being pre-med to focus on studying and raising oysters. I don't think they were that pleased, but it was a interesting change. After an interesting oyster internship with Morgan State University and 5 years of analyzing stormwater samples at a lab, I was hired as the Sustainable Fisheries GIT staffer in August of 2015. And I was there for almost the full 3 years. During that time, I collaborated with fisheries scientists, managers, and stakeholders to promote ecosystem-based fisheries management. And that involved supporting the forage, fish habitat, blue crab, and oyster outcomes. And while that in itself was such an amazing experience to learn more about the Chesapeake Bay and about how legislation is completed and how all these different people with different interests work together to come up with a good solution. One of my favorite parts about working as a CRC staffer was just the amazing professional development opportunities that the CRC opened up to me. And so I figured I would highlight a few here. Some of my staffer experiences included a mentorship with NOAA, tons of sampling, fish sampling, SAV sampling, oyster sampling, and let's see, presenting at the Restore America's Estuaries Conference, as well as volunteering weekly at the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center's Estuarine Ecology Lab. And so those experiences really helped direct my career and are something that's so influential in where I ended up going. And as a quick shout out, if you look at that second picture of me in some like overalls on this giant boat, I have a quick shout out to Kevin, who convinced me to go on a 5-day NOAA population survey to research quahogs, and it was fantastic. So that all brings me to where I am now. I work at the Chesapeake and Coastal Service at the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. I moved there directly after my my fellowship with the CRC, and it has been amazing. This job is, well, just perfect for me. I do a lot of spreadsheets, and if you know anything about me, I'm very dorky. I do spreadsheets for everything. It allows me to do a lot of site visits, to visit different parts of Maryland where we've done restoration projects. We've done a number of like tree planting events, and mostly I just support local organizations and groups to improve water quality across the state. And there's my team at the top. I don't know if you can see my cursor, and there's me sampling for shad eggs in the in the bottom picture. So how did the CRC and the Chesapeake Bay program shape my career? Number one, they really increased my knowledge and understanding. I had a fairly limited fisheries focused foundation on which I started to learn more about all the different factors that impact the Bay. It taught me about multi-organization collaboration, which was a huge skill for me to learn, considering that in the previous 5 years, I'd been in a lab working with one other lab person. So I did not have a lot of collaborative experience in my hands. And it inspired me to be more involved in advocacy in my personal life. In that center picture, you see me on the mall at the March for Science. They also built up my relationships in the environmental world. They helped me to network, to make relationships all around the field because they work with so many different and amazing partners. They encouraged me to be an advocate for myself, which was, such a foundational part of being a staffer, like choosing and looking for where you could do different types of professional development and trying to make the most of this amazing position that they offered. It also introduced me to amazing people and built friendships. In the two pictures in the corner, you can see some of my fellow staffers. We would dress up every Halloween. And we usually have a theme. In the left, I think it was all cats and dogs. And in the right, I believe it was just Bay related. But I'm still friends with these wonderful people now. In an odd turn of events, my husband is now podcasting with one of the staffers' husbands because we all became really great friends. So these are just amazing relationships that have built up. And they provided me with valuable experiences. Not only did I build up skills, I took a lot of great trainings. I'll give a shout out to Melissa, because one of the things that I did right before I got my job in grants management was take a grants management and grant writing course that she had suggested. So thank you for that. You probably helped me get my job. And along with that, you know, it really just helped beef up my resume, and it gave me amazing memories. So, you know, a shout out to everyone who was involved. But thank you so much for giving me this experience. I know I'm speaking quickly, but I'm very nervous. So thanks again.
Great. Thank you, Kara. Thanks for sharing, especially those, you know, the personal memories and relationships and photos. Not only are they fun to see, it really just highlights that the staffers all support individual teams. And so they are a little bit segmented in the focus of their work, but we really do try to bring the staffers together as a peer grouped cohort. And I think hearing the comments from our three panelists just shows, you know, how powerful those personal relationships can be, in addition to the professional relationships and the networking that the staffers experience while they're here. So thanks again for the three of you just sharing your stories with us. I am going to invite everyone, if you have questions for our panelists, please feel free to put them in the chat box. We already have a couple. And this first question is for Julie. And the question is it possible that the Campbell Foundation's new internship program could fit into the paradigm of CRC? And this reference is linking it to the C-Stream program, which, if you're not familiar with C-Stream, is a summer internship and beyond a program that provides opportunities for students from underrepresented communities who we need to bring into the environmental science and management fields if we are going to be successful in our restoration efforts. So Julie, any thoughts on that?
I know of the program. I didn't really know how it works. So all I can say is I would love to talk about any sort of collaboration. It sounds like maybe those interns would be younger. And so maybe our fellow could get involved even as to help with a mentor position. We have been expanding some of our work to expand to youth. So yes, hopefully there could be some synergy around that. I know when we had our first intern, we did a happy hour just so they could meet some of the CRC staffers. And now with the office move, I have wondered, like, how am I going to connect this next fellow in our office to some of the other like 20-something-year-olds in this movement? So I'd love to talk about doing more of that.
Great. Yeah, let's definitely keep in touch about that. We'd love to be able to reach out and engage again.
Okay.
And our next question is for all three of you. What competencies do you develop that are linked uniquely to having the experience in the large, complicated partnership that is the Bay program?
Well, I can take a crack at it. I don't know if I can identify the specific competency, but I do know that one of the things that we had to do was to be inclusive and to try to meet people where they are and help them see what the Bay program can do for them, because that wasn't always self-evident. We had a very large working group on the education side, for example. And, you know, frankly, I think there were a lot of people who were on the group at that time who maybe didn't necessarily, maybe they were tagged to be there by their boss, but weren't getting a whole lot out of it through no fault of their own. And so I'm not sure that we came to a resolution, but I do know that that's something that both myself and the coordinator at the time spent a lot of time thinking about is how do we make these meetings and this work group meaningful to such a big diverse range of people. And a lot of our working groups have that. We had state agency people and nonprofits and federal agencies from all across the watershed. What is this environmental education work group going to do for them? And so it just made us think long and hard about what it is we're doing and thinking strategically. And I think that I left the program before that came to fruition, but I think one of the results was, the group continued to push for education, continued to push for education goals that eventually became part of the 2010 agreement. And I stayed with the working group after I was a fellow. I was an active member of the working group probably until 2013, 2014. And a flip switched after the 2010 agreement and after we got some concrete goals for environmental education in that agreement. And so I think that that was a direct result of some of the thinking that we were doing back in 06 and 07.
Yeah, I could add that, you definitely develop skills of listening and hearing from different perspectives. It's always reinforced that it's a voluntary partnership and that people are there because of the outcome and the intent of the partnership and not because they're told to necessarily. But it's really all of the skills that I learned through the fellowship and just honestly working in the many different partnerships and perspectives throughout the Bay community has really helped where I am now. Definitely there's, the listening side and trying to piece puzzles together. And then there's also kind of the mediator side. I have the luxury of funding groups throughout the Chesapeake watershed. And so there's often times where someone will mention a new program and, the light bulbs start going off of, wait, this group sounds very similar to a group that's working on something up here, and you can make those connections. And I think that just reinforces all the different partnerships and relationships by playing those roles. And we're doing a lot of work now on the Eastern Shore too, where we're bringing environmental groups together and farming groups together. And everyone has the interest of water quality. And it's just sometimes the path getting there is a little different. And I think just trying to be open-mindedness about how everyone's path is probably a little different. I'm really excited. For the first time in a couple of months, we're going to help host a gubernatorial candidate forum hosted by this group of ag and environmental groups. And I'm so interested because they can't do like their traditional talking points of like, oh, I'm talking to an environmental group, this is what I'm going to say. And I'm talking to an ag group, and this is what I'm going to say. And it's really exciting to see those collaborations come together.
Thanks, Julie. Kara, do you have any thoughts on skills or competencies?
Kara, do you have any thoughts on skills or competencies that you've developed?
Yeah, I definitely want to agree with both what Kevin said and what Julie said. I feel like that collaboration element and getting different perspectives from all different types of stakeholders has been invaluable. I'm serving all the residents of Maryland, and so, we get contradictory feelings on some things, and ultimately we come together and do a lot of projects that are collaborative and help a wide range of people. I'll also say, I'll reiterate what I said about how great it was to advocate for myself. You get a lot out of the program based on what you choose for yourself. And so I made a point every week to look up different opportunities. And I hadn't done that before in my career, mostly because I was stuck in a lab, which was a great time, but it doesn't let you get out much. And so that was really amazing. And I truly enjoyed it. And I also got to glean a lot of information from all the professionals around me. I see that Kim is on the call. She helped me with some of designing communication materials. And so there were just so many people around you with a wide breadth of experience and expertise that you could reach out to at almost any time. And that was one of the great parts about being a staffer as well.
Great. Thank you all for your thoughts on that. Another question's come in and it reads, does CRC afford you possibilities to meet with the current cadre of staffers and share your stories? I think experiences while staffers and your subsequent employment would be of great interest to those in the starting gates of their careers. And I'll just put a quick note on this question that we have just launched our alumni network, and that we have maintained connections to some of our alums in a more informal way. And forming the alumni network is a really big step in that it's really going to allow us to bring these folks together intentionally and then help make these connections between the alums and our current staffer. And just hearing stories today, I think has been, really impactful. And I personally am looking forward to nurturing this relationship even more, because I think it's just so important. And our alums are such a valuable resource that we can really bring to bear. But want to give the panelists an opportunity to comment if they have any thoughts on sort of connecting our alums to our current staffers.
I think you're going down the right path. I'll just say I'm willing and able. I'd love to be able to connect and share my experiences. And it would also be nice to hear. I mean, I'm always invigorated, and I always learn when we get. We have our we partner with CRC to do our own summer internship program, and learn so much from the folks, the talent that we get in here. And I mean, I would welcome the opportunity to, I think it's a two-way form of communication, those kinds of opportunities. So I'd be happy to participate in that.
Yeah, I'm excited about growing the alumni. Obviously, there have been a lot of staffers since I left the fellowship, and I love when I meet someone and they talk about their professional track and they mention that they used to be a staffer or a fellow, and it's almost like an alumni at a college. Like you have like that instant connection. And so I love the camaraderie, and I love the idea of furthering this. And I think like the LinkedIn page that you started, yeah, I'm really excited to see how it can grow.
Yes, I think there's a lot of opportunities there. I'm always excited when I see a fellow staffer at a conference or some type of professional event. And I also, I could see us in the future, using that alumni network that we have already to, create happy hours after conferences. We'll arrange it there. We'll be like, hey, we're all, at the Chesapeake Watershed Forum. Let's go and, I don't know, meet up and have a drink. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to kind of keep those connections and to pass on what knowledge we have and what knowledge the next generation of staffers has gained.
Great, thanks. It's something I'm definitely looking forward to helping to facilitate and create some of those opportunities for additional engagement. We have another question, and that question is, what is the demographic of people coming through the program, especially male versus female staffers? Katie, that is a really great question, and I'm going to expand on that to not only talk about male versus female, but also demographics from those communities that have been historically underrepresented in the environmental field. And we don't have hard data on that to be able to give some hard and fast stats. That is something that we are trying to change a little bit through our application and recruitment processes is that when applications are submitted, we're hoping to move that process online and then inviting our applicants to fill out a voluntary survey that we could collect some of that demographic information, but that would separate out that inquiry from the application process. But it would give us some information about who is applying, because we really understand the importance of having a diversity of perspectives and experiences and backgrounds. And so particularly as some of the diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice principles have been advanced within the Bay program, it's really given us the opportunity to look at things like our recruitment practices, our hiring practices, the way we write our position announcements, the way we structure our interviews, and then the supports that we have in place. And so that we can be really intentional about creating a more diverse program. I feel that it's almost an obligation that we have, because we do seed so many professionals that are going to move into environmental leadership positions. And again, we want to be sure that we're advancing people from all communities and all backgrounds, because it's going to be imperative that we do if we want to be successful. Any other thoughts from the panelists on that subject?
I can just offer that you have to definitely be very intentional about job postings. It used to kind of be accepted like, well, this is just who applied. And now that responsibility is on the person who's posting the job application to make sure that that the pool that you're getting is diverse. And we've been collecting for our own fellowship postings, different diversity sites. I know the Choose Clean Water Coalition has a young color mentorship program and DEIJ resources, but we also found, and I'll just mention this for others, there's Diversity Outdoors, there's Outdoor Afro, there's a Black Oak Collective. I think those are all ones that just, you know, as we're reading newsletters and hearing about different partnerships, we've just been kind of tracking and keeping a spreadsheet of these different groups. Obviously the historical Black colleges and universities, and connecting with those guidance counselors. So I really just think that the ownership of the diversity and outreach has to be on us.
Great, thank you, Julie. We have another question, and this is a really fun one. I'm excited to hear the answers. If you could go back and talk to your younger self before you took the position, what advice would you give to make the most of the opportunity?
You know, I'm going to go with my gut, and it's just going to say, be more confident, be uncomfortable, get out there. Just, I mean, I used to be kind of a wallflower and like stand in the corner. And, you know, now I try to enter a room and almost kind of take the mindset of like being a politician, like just walk around the room and meet people and talk. And you just have to form those relationships. So be uncomfortable and be okay being uncomfortable.
Julie, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, I was about to say, like, put yourself out there. Don't and ask questions. I still, to this day, I do it too much. I don't ask a question because I assume that everyone already knows the answers. But when I do ask a question, I find out that oftentimes most of the time people don't. Put yourself out there, ask questions. Don't be afraid if it's a silly question. Don't assume. Do not assume. No matter how smart or experienced you think other people are in the room, don't assume that they've heard your question before and have an answer, because most likely they will not have that. I looked in awe, I remember, at some of my staffer colleagues were very bold. Brian Kittler would stand up and in front of all these high-level people ask really pointed questions. I always admired him for that. And That's my advice for sure.
Yeah, I think that's great as well. I think my advice would be to just have more conversations with all the people around you. There's so much expertise from all these different members in the GITS, in the different work groups. And if you are able to say, hey, can we have a conversation at lunch? And, pick their brain about, what they're interested in, how they got into their position. That's a great opportunity. You're surrounded by so many amazing people. So I think I would have done that a little bit more, although I did do it a bit while as a staffer.
Great, thank you. One question that I have is that, do you all have a particular moment or memory in the program that stands out to you in terms of impact, either something that you were involved in through your roles supporting the various teams and committees, or a professional development activity that you participated in?
I mentioned a couple of the professional development ones that came to mind, but Melissa, when you asked the question, my first thought went to the social life. Like, just the camaraderie of the fellows. We had a standing like Wednesday night date kind of with all the fellows out on the patio to watch the Wednesday night races. We called it One Beer Wednesday because it was a joke. It never ended up being one beer. And I still get text messages in the summertime from past fellows that are like, hey, is OBW going on tonight? And so I still get in touch with people like over that. So that's kind of where my mind went to. And I know that's probably not popular, but it just went to the social life.
That's
and
a great
those fellows,
answer.
those friendships.
Well, I mean, I'll stick on that theme. One of the things I remember vividly was there was a press event, a groundbreaking, I think, here in Annapolis, Chesapeake Ecology Center. The senior Senator Sarbanes was there, many dignitaries, and Congressman Cardin was there. And I was standing off to the side, and he gave some rah-rah comments, and it was spring, and it was happy, and it was great. He said some inspirational things, and he came over and just happened. He just came up and he kind of gave me a hug. And like, when you're just start a job and you have a congressman like come up and give you a hug, that I remember that. I definitely remember that.
Oh, those are both good. I did take advantage of our program teaching environmental education lessons to students at Annapolis Elementary. I hope they're still doing it. It was called Reset. And so I coordinated that for a couple of years while at the CRC, and it was phenomenal being able to teach this next generation to love science as much as I do. And we did ask for evaluations at the very end. And one of the best things was seeing their response. Like, I had no idea that there were like sharks that come to the bay sometimes or something like that. But one of the best ones was that a student said that they had never thought about having a career in science until they saw someone like me, a person of color, who was in the field. So that was really touching.
That's great. Thank you for those reflections. Yeah, Reset is still engaged. Obviously, we had to take a couple-year pause while we got through the pandemic and the schools were closed. But I just moved 6 boxes of Reset materials into the new office. So I'm really excited about bringing that back, and hopefully the Bay program will again pick up that torch. I know there's a lot of interest, but that was always a great way to feel like you were giving back and kind of reaching that next generation. So that's a fun memory to share.
Where are all the fellows or staffers housed now? Where are their offices?
So the main EPA-led Bay Program office is now still in Annapolis up on Forest Drive. And in that same building complex is the Park Service office. And we have a staffer that supports the stewardship goal team. And that particular team is overseen by Park Service staff. So we have a staffer located in that office. And then we have two staffers that are located in the NOAA Chesapeake Bay office with Kevin, and they are right up the road also in Annapolis. So still Annapolis based, but not all in the same campus, but very close by. There's going to be a lot of bopping back and forth between buildings, I think, in the future. And we have one final question from one of our current staffers. And he would like to know, do the panelists have any advice for marketing the work you did and the skills you learned as a staffer, fellow, or intern?
I would say the biggest way you can market yourself is through other people, and by building those relationships and getting those references. And there's nothing better than starting off like a cover letter or something and saying like, so-and-so sent me this, and it's just making those connections and letting other people kind of endorse your skills. That to me is number one.
Yeah, and similar to the previous question, don't be shy. Reach out to professionals that interest you, and see if you can get a little bit of their time. I have, I would say every few months people reach out and are interested in learning about, what I've done, and they just schedule a call with me. And during those calls, those individuals are essentially marketing themselves, but in a wonderful way. So I would say if there are people that you're interested in meeting with and talking with, oftentimes they'll give you a little bit of their time, and that's an opportunity for you to get yourself out there.
Yes, that outreach is essential, I think. I have had former staffers reach out to me, and I've helped people with resumes and cover letters. And so, I think we're all here to support one another. And reaching out to those connections is a great way to, to kind of move yourself along in the field.
Great. Thank you all for your thoughts. And I really have to extend a heartfelt thanks to the three of you for coming on today and sharing your stories with us and answering all of our questions. I really appreciate your time and looking forward to continuing the conversations between our alums and with our current staffers. I just want to note before we conclude that we will have our next roundtable webinar on May 18th, and it's going to focus on the impact of Hurricane Agnes in the watershed. And thank you all to our attendees for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.